Drone footage of Ukrainian troops advancing, smoke on the horizon, headlines, counter-offensive update, US sends more aid. On the battlefield in southern Ukraine, a slow but determined advance is underway. Ukrainian forces are making tactical gains near Zaporizhzhia, one of the most heavily fortified regions of Russian occupied territory and a key gateway to Crimea. But even as troops push forward, pressure is mounting for diplomacy to take center stage. Maps of the Zaporizhzhia front line troops in trench artillery system flying. This week, Ukraine's military reported that its force had recaptured multiple villages south of Orikhiv, breaching the first line of Russian defense in some sectors. The goal: to cut the land bridge between Russia and China, a strategic corridor that supports Russia's logistic and military government. Ukrainian officials described the progress as measured but meaningful, with fighting intensifying their Robotyne and along the Talksz axis. NATO weapon system, US transport planes and unloading aid, HIMARS launch footage. To support the force, the United States has approved another $2.3 billion in military aid launching, including HIMARS system, armored vehicles and artillery shells, but part of a long-standing effort to keep Ukraine's counter-offensive supplied and mobile. But while the weapons are flowing, so is concern, especially in Washington and Brussels, about the sustainability of the conflict. Secretary of the State Brickland, NATO summit footage, closed-door meetings. Behind the scenes, US officials are now quietly urging Kyiv to consider negotiations if battlefield momentum stalls. Sources tell the New York Times and Politico that the Biden administration is not pressuring Ukraine to surrender territory but is pushing for a realistic assessment of what can be achieved militarily in 2025. This comes as US public support for ultimate aid begins to soften, particularly in an election year. Russian troops responding drone footage of destroyed requirement, Putin speaking at military ceremony. On the Russian side, the Kremlin is digging in. Russian troops have deployed new minefields, range system and fortified barricades across southern Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin claims Ukrainian advances have been executed, even as independent analysts confirm the breach of Russian lines in several areas. At the same time, Russia continues launching drone and missiles attacks against civilian and infrastructure in Ukraine, particularly targeting energy facilities and ports along the Black Sea. Civilians sheltering, destroyed apartment buildings, humanitarian aid delivery. The toll on civilians remains staggering. The UN estimated that over 14 million Ukrainians have been displaced since the war began in February 2022. Entire towns remain without power of running water, and humanitarian corridors near the front remain dangerous and unstable. Protesters in European capitals, military training in Poland, EU and NATO logos. Across Europe, NATO allies are continuing to train Ukrainian force and prepare for a long war, but fatigue is growing. Economic stress and fears for escalation are pushing leaders to seek off ramps before another winter strange sets in. Still, Ukraine maintains that any deal must include the return of all occupied territories, including Crimea, a red line Russia continues to reject. Zelensky speaking to media, Ukrainian flag waving over reclaimed territory. President Volodymyr Zelensky remains firm. Ukraine will not trade land for space. He said the counteroffensive is proving the Russian lines can break and that continued Western support is critical to pushing the invasion back. Sunset over battlefield, families reuniting in liberated towns, global leaders shaking hands. For now, Ukraine's forces are pushing inch by inch against fortified lines, drone swarms, and political landmines. Whether the war shifts toward diplomacy, escalation, or a frozen front may depend on what happens next near Zaporizhzhia and beyond. The world watches, the war grins on, and the path to peace remains uncertain.